Here we go. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Boom, boom, boom. Hi, this is Eric Stromquist. Welcome to ControlTalk Now, your smart buildings video cast and podcast for the week ending September 30th, 2018. This is episode 285, where we talk about all things smart controls and the man, the myth, the legend, the one, the only, Kenny Smyers, your co-host of mine from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Kenny's done a couple things this week. He got the Steelers their first win, and he's got another certification behind his name. So what have you been up to, big dog?
Well, I'll tell you, it was a miracle on Monday night. The Steelers did everything they could to get the other team back in. The other team gave them touchdown after touchdown. We still came away eking. I don't know how things are going to wind up, but I will tell you this. We're playing Baltimore, and Pat Marcellus, if he's coming up to Pittsburgh, we got the Sunday night game with the Baltimore Ravens, and they look just as good as we do sometimes and just as bad. So, I mean.
Well, I have a feeling that a lot of alcohol will fix both you guys if Pat comes up. So.
And then, to get to your point about the good size, we had an amazing experience with the Honeywell Blitz training in the security world. We got all over the Vista, 20Ps, 15P, 15s, 20P, 32, 128, 250. And what was important for us is we had an integrator that was really on top of the game, and he's taken integration to the next level. And
well, I thought you were calling a football audible there. All those things you did, the 32s, those are standards? I thought you were calling an audible.
Well, our audibles, we had to go color first. So it was all like green 38, green.
Yeah. The things are they standards?
They're actually fire and burglary panels.
I got you.
And what it is if you ever, this was for certification. So it's an amazing course. Honeywell's other side, the Residio side now, has assumed they're just taken over the ADI security. So this came out of ADI, and what it is that many cases are what we have to do is we have to keep an eye on fire and burglary, because we take a security Jace, for instance, and we put it in there, and we're feeding information into these panels now. So we have to feed information into a Vista panel, so that you need to know. So you're seeing more integration, more seamless integration. So you need to know how it works and how you have different zones. And one zone, first zone's only for fire, and the rest of them are for other things that you monitor, whether it's intrusion, break glass, acoustics, whatever. So to make a long story short, it's inputs and outputs on a network, but they have their own version of it. But it's really a nice setup. I mean, it's just thousands and thousands of these things out there, and the more you know about them, then the more you can use the secondary enunciations. You can do different things for people and save time and energy, and still, the jurisdiction having authority. You got 50 states, you got 100 different communities with each state. Each one has their own kind of, their own way to do things, their own fire departments. So,
but hang on a second, let me get this straight. So now you're certified to do that now?
No, this is just the first. Actually, I didn't complete. They have a program, Eric, that's so extensive. You can go online, do web-based training, and you do a completion, almost like the N4 cross-training to from AX to N4 is all web-based. Siemens has a bunch of web-based training. If you go on there and you spend the 40 hours and complete the testing, you'll get a certificate of completion. The certificate of completion is valid, so you have to sign up and register through the security, through the Honeywell Homes, and then you get access to this training center, and you take the course, and you pass it online. You have to get, I think, over an 80% on each evaluation. So what we did, we got attendance credits for the but the actual guy that does the heavy lifting and the integration, one of our customers, Dave Simmers, he needed to get this so he could actually get to meet the product manager and ask some questions regarding what's the best way to skin a cat, because there's so many different ways to do things. There's so many, you have choices out there, and the important thing is that you don't have over redundant for the sake of redundancy. You don't need to have one of each when you could have used one if you knew how to use it.
Yeah.
And it's good stuff.
Well, it is great stuff. And speaking of great stuff, we got two wonderful guests teed up and ready to go. So I think we're going to be guest-centric this week. And if you want to see the posts that were posted last week, you can basically go check those out. But Kenny, how about introducing our first guest?
Love to. I recently met our guest at a CGNA meeting in Chicago where they won a very prestigious award. But we want to say hello to Gina Elliott, Vice President of Americas for EZIO. Welcome to the show, Gina.
Welcome, Gina.
Thanks. Thank you, Eric.
Well, it is so good to have you here. And listen, I'm going to go on public record right now saying you are one of my favorite people in the industry. I think we're all kindred spirits here. We all love controls. We love smart building controls, but we also love the arts. From our community probably knows Kenny is a writer, and he's going to write the history of control trends awards. And Gina, you're a writer and a publisher at times too. So talk to me a little bit about you, your background, how you got started, and sort of how you wound up at EZIO.
Okay, so it's a long, winding, curvy road, but I have a degree in criminology, and I worked in the criminal justice field for quite a while. And I started doing investigations, ended up at an insurance company, went back to school to get my MBA, thought I wanted to work in the prison system for reform. Interestingly enough, probably my strongest skill set that I had was my ability to write well. And so that, instead of becoming something I fed myself with, it just became more of a hobby. But anyway, at the insurance company, went on mergers and acquisitions, picked up a lot about technology. And from there, I started with a startup company. They were one of the first startup companies to do converged voice, video, and data in the country. And we were a VAR, and learned a lot about IT. And we focused a lot on hotels. And as you know about hotel rooms, the guest room is kind of like a little mini building. And that's building systems. And then from there, went on to do consulting engineering. Consulting engineering for interoperability of smart buildings. And then I finally found my way to EZIO. As you probably know that story very well there, Eric, but I found my way to EZIO. When I was doing consulting engineering, we were probably one of the very few consulting firms specializing in smart building design, which is the integration interoperability of multi-building systems. And so if you look at my career, it kind of zigzags, but the one thing that it kind of has in common with everything I've ever done is emerging markets, emerging technology. And that's where I play well at.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what was it about EZIO other than Mike Marston's good looks and engaging personality that had you decide to go to EZIO? Because I'm sure you were in demand with a lot of people.
Well, thank you for that. With EZIO, I missed being at that cutting edge. I figured something out that I like being in that emerging field, that new technology. I'm not a patient person, and that I'm really not, but interestingly, it takes a lot of patience to be in that. And I think it's because over the years I've done it for so long, I know what to expect. And so I had heard a lot about EZIO for the last few years, and then I talked to you, and we talked a little bit about the industry and where the market was going. And I was just really missing being on that cutting edge. I always want to be cutting edge, not bleeding edge.
Right.
And so EZIO came along. I talked to a few people about the products, and nothing but rave reviews. I asked so many questions. I think people thought I was undercover, getting some type of market intelligence. But so many questions. I even had one, and I'm not going to say his name, but I even sat down and for an hour, and we took apart and compared different products and stuff. And then I went to your friend Mike Marston, and we talked, and we went back and forward, and he picked my brain about, what do you think about the industry? And then finally, I told him, I said, listen, I'm not a salesperson, so I did my due diligence. He did his due diligence, and here I am.
Well,
That's
Gina,
great. Great. I'm going to push this along a little bit because I'm going to piggyback off what you're saying about you like to be on the cutting edge in technology. And of course, I got a chance to see some of the interesting paths you've been on. But one of the first things you did was you came into EasyIO and you tried to change the focus of marketing from HVAC or building automation control to an IoT controller. And I noticed that's already made an impact with some of the marketing that you guys are generating, some of the marketing collateral. So tell us about your thoughts that this particular line doesn't have the connotation to be just a building automation controller or the old school HVAC controller. This is an IoT device.
Yeah, and so what I typically say is my catchphrase is, I call it an IT device with controls capability. That's how I describe our devices, and it's not for everybody. It's learning a new skill. Really, when you look at our controls, I'll go on to IP devices, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But when you do that, they move fast, they move rapidly, and security, network friendliness, all of those things are important. The ability to manage and maintain devices becomes a lot easier, but it becomes a lot of responsibility. There's also a lot of opportunity there as well.
EasyIO is on a roll. I mean, just every year you come out with a new product. You're pushing the technology, and Eric and I believe that a lot of the manufacturers now are paying very close attention to EasyIO because you've earned your stripes, so to speak, in the market. But I think again, you're on a roll. You came out of the Chicago EasyIO, won the Preferred Vendor of Excellence Award from the CGNA, which I think is a very important and prominent, award because number one, you're competing against the big boys, your Schneiders, your Johnson Controls, whomever, and it was and it's not given lightly. So it means you were vetted very carefully by 43 of the toughest distributors probably in the business. So congratulations, it's quite an award.
Yeah, thank you so much. I've worked with CGNA for a few years now, and I got lucky, I think, when I joined EasyIO that I'm also working again with the CGNA group as well as its members. So it was a pleasant surprise. I didn't expect that. So it's nice to be recognized because it validates that you're doing some things right.
How do you describe your product offering to somebody that doesn't know who you are?
Fluid.
Pardon?
It's a fluid product offering.
Yeah.
I think this industry is used to in the box type of product, and our products can be anything you want it to be.
Yeah. Kenny and I have talked, Gina, about the fact that we think one of the things that maybe works in your favor is you don't have legacy controls. Since you guys are relatively new. And the statement we've made is if you got people to sit down and be completely honest, if they didn't have legacy stuff that they had to factor in, they probably would build something like EasyIO. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, it's both a blessing and a curse not to have existing customers because, for one thing for me, I don't feed off of existing customers.
Right.
Mine are all new customers. And so when you look at a lot of manufacturers, 99% of the business they have coming in the door are those legacy customers.
Yes.
And you're right. If those legacy customers could just, pick and choose, it might be a different story. They might have a little bit more troubling time.
We've seen a progression here that I think, has really and truly set the pace in the industry. You came out with the FG and then the FG32 Plus. We called the FG32 the Beast from the East. That was a nickname because it had so much. It almost crawl off the table when you sit it there in front of people because it looked like a car. It looked like it had it had wheels. It would go, and then the FS32. So it was the first server class plant controller. So quad core processing. I mean, it took us a while for us to understand what that meant. The ramifications. You could have one of the processor dedicated to this and one to that, and one so that you didn't. So it had incredibly fast processing.
Similar to your computer.
Right.
It's I always try to use analogies to which people understand. So, when I buy a computer, as you guys just told me, I have a lot of programs on my computer. I have about 10 applications open all at once, and with a quad processor, dual processor, it makes the computer run faster. So yeah,
Right.
That's why one of the things that we like to say is the graphics. When you boot up the graphics, it's like 2.3 seconds to boot up graphics.
And we're going to transition here because eventually we'll come into some digressions here. I got a feeling I'll ask you a question and take us off the mark. But what we want to do is talk about what's going on new and some of this pushing of the envelope and the tip of the spear sort of stuff with the FTO4. And you guys have a program. You just launched an ambitious find me the best application program. Tell us about that.
So, the FTO4, a lot of people got the beta back in April. And through the feedback that we got on the FTO4, we decided, okay, let's make it a little bit bigger. So the chip got bigger. We added a few more things to it. We added some dashboards, pretty basic stuff. And so we were hoping to release that FTO4 about this time, but with the enhancements, we went back to the drawing board, made it a better little device, and expect the launch at the end of the year. In the meantime, what we're looking for is use cases. And some people have given us some really unique and interesting ideas. People are using it at home. One person uses it to monitor their garage door. One person uses it for water metering. So what we would like to do is have different types of use cases out there so that people get good ideas on how you can apply the FTO4. And so right now we have a promotion going on, and if you received the FTO4, we ask that you send in the use case. We're going to look at them, judge them, either one person or three potential people get a prize on the best.
Well, I'll tell you, and then the reason why it can go to pursue the point originally of an IoT controller or a network controller, which is outside the normal dynamic of a controller that's it's unitary, it's designed for a specific application, a rooftop unit, whatever. This FTO4, which is smaller than a pack of cigarettes, has an amazing input-output capability, 2 universal inputs, which could be voltage, 0 to 10 or 0 to 5.
Right.
It has 2 digital outputs if you want to use them, and it also has relays so that you can use a single pull, single throw, normally open, contact output, or a 0 to 10 volts DC output. So what that means is you could put, and this has full capability, full programming capability, live wire sheets. I mean, this is and the size of it is remarkable, but you could take this inside of an office now and control lights. You can control the blinds. You could put this controller in concert with a web program. So there's web information like sun tracking as it gets updated. This little guy or girl, whatever you call it, this little controller can take that web input and control an output based on it. So it's truly you talk about edge computing or edge cloud controlling. That's going to be quite a remarkable product. So we're really looking forward. Now, when was you do some more beta sites and you made an enlargement? When's your actual time to market now? Would you project first quarter of 2019?
End of the year right now. But Ken, the good thing about the FTO4 again, it's very versatile, like all of our products. Use it as a standalone. You could use it for a very small office, very small building. You can use it. It's great if you want to add it to certain equipment and make it part of a solution. There's just so many different things that you can do with it.
That's remarkable. We congratulate you again. Now, so what else do you have on the roadmap? I know that your website, you guys dug deep into the website. I'm looking at it, and we're seeing a whole lot more participation. Tell us about some of the roadmaps for that website. What that's going to do for
the website. So the web, of course, and we're adding a portal. We're adding communities. We're adding documentation. Eventually, going to add training. So everything is going to be about partner centric. What can we do to make our partners' life easier? What kind of information do they need? So everything that we're doing is how do we give the partners the resources that they need? There's a few other things coming down the pike that we're going to be working on as well, but that's way down the road. So, but I'm excited about it.
Well, you should be. And for our community, because again, we've been covering EasyIO since Control Trends, came around, and a lot of people think, they're out of Singapore. Mike and Lim make a trip, a couple times a year, and you got your support via email. But that sort of has changed. I mean, for the U.S. market, because you guys are a global company, but so you actually have some technical support and some other resources along with the website. Tell our community about those.
Yeah. So Brian Klein is also part of the U.S. team, and right now, what we're trying to do is leverage our global resources on a support capacity. So we, as you know, we have offices in Europe and India and Australia and everywhere else. And so we're leveraging that support team, pulling them all together so that we have that 24/7 support and contact. Brian has been with the company before me, so he's been here since November. And he's responsible for all the technical support and engineering and training and everything for EasyIO Americas.
Well, and he's very qualified for that. Tell our community a little bit about his background, because he's very qualified to be supporting these.
He has a Tritium background. He has a systems integrator background, so he has a pretty good background. Not to mention, he's extremely personable. And when you meet Brian, it's very obvious that he's very passionate about EasyIO, and he loves these products.
So Gina, Lim, the mad scientist, and Mike and the rest of the EasyIO team seems to be really committed to a concept we call wireless Wi-Fi. Mm-hmm. What is that, and why should our community care about it?
Okay, so, Wi-Fi is not a new technology. In wireless, there are different types of communication protocols, whether in ocean or Wi-Fi or what have you. And we choose Wi-Fi because it's more pervasive. That's what they use in the IT community. This just allows you a lot more flexibility, drives the cost down, as you already said. That's a heavy investment for us. We're going to continue that. A lot of questions, are we going to do another protocol? No, not really, because again, we try to stay current with current IT standards. So we've done a lot of projects with just wireless throughout.
Well, you guys, you've done a lot, Gina. Just to give you a testament to it, we've recently put a project in, is that EasyIO has figured out a lot of the wireless problems. In other words, obviously you survey things, when you can come into a problem, and there's no limitations, facts when you deal with wireless. But one thing it does is it gives you the opportunity to do a hybrid. EasyIO has IP, wireless, and so you can go from any area that you got a wall or something you can get through. You just put you get a little spacer in there. You run it from one controller to the next, and you're back on Wi-Fi. So I think you guys are leading the league in wireless. There's some good wireless controllers out there, but EasyIO probably has the best commercial wireless application for the money. Another thing, again, we're talking price points, Eric. You mentioned earlier. When you look at the cost of installed job, you save on labor, but you also save on the controller parts, Yeah. And I think you also want the most robust controllers possible. And some of the clever things you all have done in the past, one of the walkaways or takeaways that always impressed me was when Lim said, we didn't try to make the best router. We take the best router on the market, we put IO onto it, and they solved the router issues. We put the control inputs and outputs, we solved the control issues. So that collaboration of technologies is what really, I think, propels EasyIO compared to the manufacturers that make a controller and try to put the communication capability into it. They've got limited real estate in there, and if you take the real estate platform that you already have, build on it, it's ingenious.
Right, and as you just said, Lem's thing is he says, I take an access point or I take a wireless router and make it a controls device versus the other way around, and that's our approach to it. But
so I think that's a differentiator. I think, and therefore you have a lower cost control based on that, and you have the most up-to-date technology.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
And you're not having to invest in the research and development. I think it's a brilliant strategy. You guys have always been innovative, and I think part of that innovation is the fact that you're not afraid to take somebody else's technology and then customize it for the smart building controls world. And just a great example of where this wireless Wi-Fi comes in is, we got some prisons we need to do. You can't go down and retrofit the controllers in the prison. So you can just get up on the roof, run the controllers, and very, very easy peasy. So, well, Gina, listen, the community is going to get to see you and the rest of the team. Is Mad Mike and Lim all coming over for the Control Trends Awards?
Yes.
Control Trends community, EasyIO is a Platinum Plus sponsor again, and we really appreciate your gracious support.
Absolutely.
And then we've got a little EasyIO event, we don't let all the magic out of the box yet, but EasyIO has some interesting things up their sleeve for the Control Trends Awards evening.
Yes, yes. I hope to be able to unveil a new product line.
Ooh.
All right then.
All right.
Well, that's certainly a good way to.
That's all I can say
Okay.
about that.
Well, Gina Elliott has been our guest from EasyIO. They call it easy for a reason. And I tell you what, EasyIO is lucky to have you, Gina. You've already sort of done some great things and going to continue down the road. Hope we can get you back, and let's keep our community updated on what's going on at EasyIO. In the meantime, what's the best way to get hold of you? What's the best website for them to go to if they want to get some of your training videos and all that other good stuff outside of Control Trend?
EasyIO.com.
There you go. That's easy enough.
There you go.
All right, Gina, man, have a great rest of the day, and thank you so much for taking time to be on our show.
All right, thanks, guys. Talk to you later.
Well, I tell you what, man, EasyIO, they're all over at Kenny, as you know, but, our first post on Control Trends, I think it was another guy that was kind of like he was the EasyIO of his generation. Talk about our first post.
Well, this was an amazing post. When I got through an engineering magazine, Experience Taliesin West, Experience Back to the Future with Frank Lloyd Wright. I watched this video and then I went into some of the other things that you could do. But Frank Lloyd Wright was so ahead of his time. It's scary. And this test base that he had to try different things with lighting but he knew one day that he said that living and working designs were based on tenets of live more beautifully, engage in the physical world around you, and live a happier, more fulfilled every day in the buildings and spaces that serve as a constant constructs of your world. This statement was made back in the 50s. So 1950, Frank Lloyd Wright was looking ahead, and he said that we got to build things to make people happy. You can't build an ugly building and have people be comfortable and fulfill themselves. So if you go onto the website, he said that here's a guy that watched the world change dramatically from horse and buggy to the launch of the Sputnik rocket. And then he passed away right shortly after the Sputnik was launched. But he told everybody about the span of what he saw in his life, and his visions are now being realized at this facility. This facility is for architects and engineers to go and take a look at his designs and then have the opportunity to work them, improve them, and deploy them.
You and I have both been reading a book called Understanding, and there's a lot about architecture in there. And I think one of the first quotes is, architecture does what nature can't. But I think this concept, that Ken Sinclair has been talking about, the humanization of the building, I think architects have understood that from day one, right?
Sure.
But now it's the controls and the lighting and the environment we're really talking about within those structures.
All right. Well, then, and then bounce around right to the next post. We had the Belimo HVAC sensors seamlessly integrated, perfect complement to actuators and valves. And I just can't emphasize how, when it comes to engineering and it comes to doing precision, sensing or whatever, Belimo is really showing a very strong play in the sensors. Now, and they have the picture tells it all. They do, water, air, VOC. They've got it all. Humidity. So they're making a big inroad.
We've sold some, and I tell you what, the hype is warranted. It really is. It's kind of like if Bentley was going to make a sensor, or Rolls Royce, you'd expect it to be a certain thing, and that's kind of what Belimo did. And it's great stuff. Yeah. So I hope we can get one of their product managers on to maybe talk more in depth about it.
Right, and to thank them again for being platinum sponsors. So thank you very much.
Let's hit kind of our last post real quick, and then let's get to our next guest who's teed up.
Okay.
AHR Expo announced their Innovation Award winners.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have those listed on Control Trends, so you can check those out. And that's just a warm-up for the Control Trends Awards, where the people in our industry are going to come out and celebrate and be acknowledged. So ballot should be going out next week. Kenny and I are still trying to get those right. As you know, man, we've been talking ad nauseum for the last several years about the fact that guys like you and I are going to retire, and old guys are going to retire, and there's not going to be enough people coming behind to fill all the jobs and all the opportunities. Our next guest is working diligently to make sure that's not the case. How about introducing them, Kenny?
I'd love to, because we know that we have one of the fastest growing, businesses and industries in the country, North America, HVAC. So our next guest is very, very important, and it's very timely for the Control Trends community. We have Mr. Brian Lovell. MED. He's co-principal investigator of National Science Foundation. He's got over 25 years of experience, and he's really excited because he's got some great work he's done, and he's got some great information to share with us. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Welcome, Brian.
Well, thanks. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Kenneth. It's a real honor to be here. I've known Eric and your brother, Dave, for most all of that 25 years. And we've worked together over the years, I know, to support education. So it's great to be here to join you guys.
Well, it's great. And over, if our community will notice over Brian's right-hand shoulder is somebody with a Braves uniform on, and I'm guessing that's back when they won the first series, or?
Yeah, believe it or not, I was a coach before I got really deep into developing certifications for the industry. So that's me and Bobby Cox, and I'm proud of that. I used to coach youth baseball, so
nice.
I got a chance to get supported by the Braves and meet him. Great experience.
Very, very cool. And now you also worked for an integrator for a while, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, before you got into the education side, what was it?
Yeah, that's right. I started with, I think you remember Bob Cole back in the late 80s and early 90s. Yeah, started with him and then worked with a legend in our field for years, Buck Martin. And
Buck Martin over at the Barbara Coleman branch back in the day.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I worked with him for years, and proud to call him a mentor of mine. So,
yeah. Well, you're not the only one. Our friend Leroy Walden, who I don't know whether he was there at the same time you were or not, but he claims Buck as a mentor too.
And Leonard Lowe, yes, all of us
yes,
actually had Buck as a mentor. I started a controls company back in the mid '90s, and we distributed some control systems. Bought a lot of stuff from you guys, and had a good time in Atlanta. But our problem was, as you've already said, finding talent. That company was some of the best years and some of the worst years of my life, because as you know, and I think a lot of your listeners know, in the controls industry, high stress, not enough people to help, not enough qualified people to help, to close out a job and walk away and not have callbacks. So I sold that business and thought it was done with the controls industry, but it wasn't done with me. That's when we got into starting a program, one of the first in the country at DeKalb Tech, now Georgia Piedmont Technical College. And you guys certainly supported that from the very beginning. So that's what's busied me over the last decade, Eric, in disseminating the work there at Georgia Piedmont Technical College to a national audience through National Science Foundation funding.
Very cool. Well, let's talk more about that, because really and truly you have gone from regional to national scale. I mean, to the point that possibly even some legislation is going to be coming down based on your hard work.
Well, yeah, I'll back up for just a minute. We started that program back in 2007 in the Atlanta area, and we had all the names in the field at the table, from Siemens, you guys, Johnson, everybody was there, trained, not to leave anybody out.
Right.
It was a true joint effort in starting that program because of the need. In 2012, the National Science Foundation took an interest in that work, and we submitted for a national center, actually the first national center focused on the building and building efficiency trades, inclusive of building automation. And that's my role with the grant, is to disseminate best practices in building automation education to a national audience of community and technical colleges. And so for the last 6 years, we've been doing that work, and I know you're very supportive of that, and Stromquist, we're very thankful for that.
You're very welcome.
But the last 3 years, we've noticed that the industry needs, as we all know, some guidelines and some certifications that can be communicated both to educators and to those who are hiring students that are coming out of technical or community college programs, so we can start bringing some clarity to the basic skills needed to be successful in our industry. And so we busied ourselves the last 3 years and going around the nation, collecting research, following ISO and ANSI guidelines for setting up a true certification, something that the industry as a whole has a say in defining. And we're very close to announcing the work products of that 3-year effort. As you mentioned, the congressional support, we have been in communication with our representatives both on the state and national level to bring clarity, and not just to our field in particular, building automation, but STEM fields as a whole that are all experiencing the problem that you mentioned, and that is the silver tsunami. Folks like you and myself and others are about to hang it up in the next 10 years or whenever that is, it's coming. Yeah. So,
Well, Brian, let's go. Let's take it down. Take a deeper look into some of the amazing efforts that you have and some of the initiatives. I know that you work on two of them. We have one. The ACP probably is really getting great traction out there, and we really do need it. We'd mentioned a previous. Some of the facts and figures about our industry and how by the year 2022 we could have a catastrophic shortage in one of the fastest growing industries in North America. So the irony is plentiful here. And then two is that some of the programs, like you say, we don't have a fast enough program or accelerated program. There's no way to take somebody in here and speed them up to 60 miles an hour. You've got to spend time and energy learning about the basics, and those basics need to be identified and defined. So tell us about some of the program, whatever you want to start with, but we'd like to hear about both of your initiatives.
Okay, well, let's start with the BEST Center. The BEST Center stands for Building Efficiency for Sustainable Tomorrow. That project is now in its sixth year. We were refunded for another 4 years.
Great.
So that will run through at least 2022. And what that does, as I previously mentioned, it identifies best practices, of which Georgia Piedmont Technical College was one, for curriculum, and it disseminates that to a national audience. So when we started that project, Georgia Piedmont Tech and maybe one or two other colleges in the country in 2012 offered a true associate's degree in building automation. Today, we have nearly 20 with another 60 to 70 that are in the works of offering that. Now, that's a little bit longer track than what we would like in the industry because it's typically 2 years from start to finish, or to where we can hand them off to, a Stromquist for professional level training, or another organization that will train them up for professional skills. What ACP is doing in conjunction with the BEST Center and others, including the Department of Energy now, is establishing the baseline skill standards, and will publish those so anybody who has those skills or can get those skills from a provider can come into our industry, and we can increase the flow rate of talent that's coming into our field. Another thing, a segue to this, if you don't mind me continuing, is we have a lot of interest, including, I'll mention one, the state of California has commissioned the Association of Controls Professionals to do a study in LA and Orange counties, and we've collected data over the last year as part of that study, which is soon to be released in October. And what we found there is just shocking. On any single day, you have tens of thousands of opportunities for building automation technicians in the country that go unfilled because we don't have enough flow. The variability in the way that those jobs are even let out by companies, hiring companies, is staggering. You have all kinds of terms used trying to acquire talent from engineering programs, from all kinds of different programs, because employers just don't know where to get folks from. I've heard some employers say, hey, Brian, if you can just find somebody who's trustworthy, has some soft skills, can communicate, we'll take them from there and we'll train them up. And that's actually what's happening today.
Yeah.
It's shocking. So.
Yeah, and it's kind of hit or miss with that, I mean, it's tough. It's really, really tough. And as you know, and Kenny will tell you too, our biggest expense is getting somebody from a distributor standpoint up to speed where they can help somebody, right? And it's about $250,000 by the time it's all said and done. So having a pool that we can draw upon is I applaud your work. I really do.
Well,
Brian, I got a really pressing question here. I can't even wait. I got to ask it right now.
Kenny wants to go global.
No, here's the thing. I mean, you very well articulated the exact status of the forces, so to speak. And we know because the Silver Tsunami. That's an amazing term, but it's so true. In other words, it's just a bad way that we got so top heavy and didn't put a middle gardener. And somebody explained it to us too, that it was a generational thing, where people wanted to go when they wanted to go to college, and they didn't want to really get involved, and they certainly didn't want to get outdoorsy and technical, and we didn't emphasize mechanical skills and developments. And that happens down at grade school and high school. So my burning question is, if you're successful in this, I mean, isn't this the sort of thing that you can go down into the next level and actually show people, hey, we've got a roadmap here that leads to a very successful career. And it's not just a single thing, and not going to be just a mechanic. It'll give people oriented towards a mechanical concept, and then from there you'll sprout out into IT based on the mechanical equipment, or based on the facility that needs managed. So My thing is that we could one day tell high schools to quit sending people to these useless degree colleges and come away with a 4-year degree in history and a $200,000 debt. I mean, we need technicians, but we got to get it earlier. We got to get it in 6th grade. We got to need, kids need to see electricity and play with it and blow air through pipes and stuff.
Wow, I'm glad this is recorded because I'm going to share it with my 2 sons. You're singing the same tune that I sing all the time, Kenneth, and it's so, the problem is so acute, and you're absolutely right. We have to go down into the middle schools and certainly junior high schools and make parents and counselors too. Right. Shockingly, counselors are not aware of some of these pathways, which they should be, because they're not tracked by federal SOC codes or professional codes that characterize the profession and how you progress through that profession. But your question also, I have to mention this because you teed it up perfectly. We have, and when I say we, ACP, the Association of Controls Professionals, and the BEST Center, the National Science Foundation Project, have been seeding programs in urban areas around the country. And one that we recently did was in Miami. When we opened that program, it was very unique because it enrolled both high school students and junior high school students in the 9th grade and adults in a building automation systems environment. Very unique. One of the largest accredited school districts in the United States, Miami-Dade County. When that project started this year, I guess it was late spring, it was covered by the local news, Channel 7 and I think Channel 11 in Miami. And it went viral. And some national foundations took an interest, not the building automation side, but the model from a STEM perspective. And so they reached out to us, and after a lot of discussions, we've entered into an agreement. I can't say who yet, but we'll bring millions of dollars to this effort through ACP to match with the National Science Foundation in working on the problem that you just identified. And that is reaching down into the middle and junior high schools, going out to develop career pathways in many of the urban areas of the United States, and then bringing us, ACP and the BEST Center, more resources, human resources to do the work. Because as you know, that's the bottom line is you need the people to get out there and do the work and make folks aware of it. We'll be anxious to announce that as soon as it comes out. We've already signed the agreement, and I think that this will start.
Well, hopefully we can have you back on the show, and we can help propel that message forward. Yes. Awesome.
Because if you think about it, Brian, and you talk to it, and because in between we got a gap with the millennials, right? And they're very concerned about the environment, and our industry is one of the few environments where you can have a direct impact on the global footprint, and not only that, documented. I mean, the sky's the limit. You're not getting in a cubicle farm or whatever, but it's just people don't know, and I don't think they think it's cool. I think what we got to have is somebody like Aaron Sorkin or Martin Scorsese make some teen movies where the heroes are smart building controls professionals, right? I mean, I'm halfway kidding, but at the same reason, it's, why do we all do sports, and why do we all play guitar?
Eric, to your point, I lived in Europe 9 years. My wife's German. I was stationed there in the Air Force, and the rest is history. But I really got to see, different lens look at how professions and trades are regarded in Europe. In Germany, they had a famous, the Stern magazine, and they had like 12 profiles of men across the thing. They had pilots, bankers, doctors, lawyers, basically a steam fitter, and then you had to guess their rank of prestige and money, what their incomes were. So obviously the surgeon is likely to make a lot of money and whatever. And but what amazed me was the steam fitter, or basically it's Klimaanlage and Heizung technique, whatever. It's basically a heating and air conditioning. But they were like 5th out of the 12. So their status as a society was so much higher in the regard. People were proud to be, the guy that made this hospital comfortable, or this apartment building function, and knew all this stuff and got certified. Had that, because guess who was the most important person in the villages where we lived in? And I lived in several of them. And my father-in-law just happened to be one of these trade, Heizung technique, and he could fix people's boilers and whatever. He was the most popular guy in town. Every bakery, church, whatever. Can you come over? I got an emergency, and he'd come home from a hard day's work, and he'd just be have to go help somebody. And it wasn't just family. It was to the regard. And see, that's what we need to change. Eric and I keep talking about, we went to do this thing called the Young Guns. And if you're down at the Control Trends Awards this year, maybe you can get involved with Ken St. Clair and us and recognize the Young Guns, So this was a concept where we took somebody that was typically 30 years or younger, and we've reversed engineered their careers to find out where they came from and how'd you get in this career field. How'd you get to be a building automation specialist or a Siemens technician or whatever, and it was all remarkable because none of them had a straight line. It was all zigzag and my dad's this and I got fired from here or whatever, and we just happened to be here. It was like,
but I think what Brian's doing is he's providing them the straight line, and that's a really cool thing. So now if you're interested, Brian's going to set it up where you can get in and you can get a high paying job and there are plenty of them out there.
Absolutely.
And I think what Ken and I are trying to do, Brian, is we're trying to figure out how to attract people into the industry. So, I got to tell you, every time I go to a bar and they're pretty young ladies, I give them one of Kenny's cards and said, you should, just teasing.
Okay, Eric. Okay. That's a good story.
But Eric he tells a funny story. It actually is funny. He used me, so I just started giving him a nasty look. But when the girl asked you, what did you do for a living? You said you're a rock star or you played in the band, you're happening. If you told somebody you were,
So I got the perfect line for that, Brian.
Say, hey, somebody else, see you later. I'm going to go talk to this guy.
No, but it's the verbiage, and we might edit this out, Brian. I don't know, but it's the verbiage. No, you look at it, you say, I'm the guy that makes you hot when you're cold and cold when you're hot.
Okay, that's a great answer. I always hated when people used to ask me what I do. I ended up saying I'm a thermostat expert because it was such a long explanation. Now I got a new one. Thanks, Eric.
You bet. Well, listen, I know that there are a ton of, control test community people that include manufacturers and everything else that are going to want to support and get involved in this because it's good for all of us. How can they help you?
Right. We've been very careful. We want the support. When we've reached out and done the research, we've engaged as many and most in the industry, thousands of folks, But again, it's a question of bandwidth and timing. Now that we have new resources coming into the organization, we're about ready to launch these certifications. We have a larger appetite to engage a broader audience. And I think that the biggest thing is really the awareness. I mean, working together in local areas, especially urban areas, to develop that career pathway is hugely important.
Yeah.
Another thing we found, and you guys have done this, I know our students, I say ours, they used to be my students, at Georgia Piedmont Technical College, each semester would reach out to Stromquist and other local companies in Atlanta to either shadow technicians and or talk to yourself or your brother or other leaders there at Stromquist or other companies to learn about, really almost seeking a mentor.
Yeah.
And that's what it's going to take, I think, is to seed that kind of methodology around the country, especially in our urban centers, and pair up the employers with the programs that are starting in their area. And we have a lot of urban areas in the United States now covered. There's still some out there, but chances are, if you're in a big city now, we have a program that's been sponsored by the Best Center and or ACP. And so we could probably connect you with those.
Brian, we would definitely, any way we can support you on that, Brian, in terms of that, please let us know, because Ken and I know a lot of people, and we want to support you any way we can. And that might be a way, if somebody has an area they need to meet somebody, please let us know and we'll make sure.
That's wonderful. Sure. Thank you for that offer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Brian, I saw you speak once, and people might not realize it, but you're a very good, you do a lot of promoting. You do a lot of stage work in front of large groups of people. And it's an educational process. So I think your background suits you well because you're versed very much in the building automation controls, how they work. And also you're an educator. So you understand what people need to hear. The lizard stem, you got to get people excited. You got to not scare them, but you got to get their attention and how important this is. But one of the things you cited early on was that we don't even have an NAICS code for our world that we live in. Most of the people that work in this don't even have the ability to go to a SIC or an NAICS, check on a box of your professional skills, So,
right,
I mean,
right.
and so tell us about some of the headway you've made there.
Yeah. So as it turns out, when I started this project, my dad's a veteran and he was being honored for his service much, as you're a veteran and others, in the Vietnam era. And the congressman at the time was Glenn Thompson out of Pennsylvania. And I got a chance to meet him just as we were starting this initiative. Glenn Thompson now is the co-chair of the Career and Technical Education Caucus in Congress. Imagine that, right? So we've been keeping him aware of what we're doing so that we can use that leverage and awareness to bring more attention to the need for a federal tracking code for our industry. Now, as another aside to your question, we're also running, ACP is running a national pilot program with the Department of Energy right now with 6 colleges. And as that project finishes in the next 6 to 9 months, we'll be also taking that project to scale. And what that does is help colleges who are trying to start programs develop curriculum in a way that has good educational practice and theory underpinning it. We all know, I mean, I'm just an industry guy. That was almost my whole background. I had my businesses and all that. I learned very quickly when I became an educator that that's a whole nother world. And I think in a lot of our technical colleges, the doers, myself, Eric, others who are the doers, what I call the doers in the field, may not fully understand the educational theory that goes behind good training. And so we're trying to match those up with this project. Along the way, we're keeping the Department of Labor and folks that we know up in Capitol Hill aware of what we're doing. Part of the project that I just referenced earlier and funded by a national foundation who I can't mention yet, but part of that project is to establish a federal tracking code for our industry, building automation. Now, we don't know how long that will take. The wheels sometimes turn very slowly, but that's one of the goals in what we're trying to do here, because we know how important it is to get that.
That's awesome.
Very cool. Brian, I'm gonna make a statement. It's gonna sound like it's funny at first, but I'm sort of sincere with it, which is, I know that technology is displacing a lot of people, and I'm willing to bet that if this guy understood the opportunities, because I think he feels pretty bad about the fact that he's getting ready to displace a bunch of truck drivers, is Elon Musk. Guys like him and the Virgin Airline guys, I wish we could get the message to them that we got this incredible field here.
Yep.
That people that are losing those type jobs, there's a pathway for them. I mean, not just the younger ones, but I'm guessing right now, if you're like me, we'll take anybody. If you're middle-aged and want to learn, we'll take you,
Well, to Eric's point, the Elon Musk projection was by the year 2020, between 2020 and 2024, 2-point-some million truck drivers would be displaced by autonomous vehicles. I read a report yesterday that the Amazon fulfillment center capabilities and online sales are going to displace 3.2 million retail workers. People in and around the service counters and around the cash registers are all going to be displaced. And you know what? So if that isn't a wake-up call, I mean, these are serious wake-up calls. I'm glad the government's involved. I'm glad we're really, truly getting wheels turning, the big wheels, the important wheels, not the local guys, just, guys like you're a local hero where you're just burning out trying to make something happen in your little county, your community, your city, or whatever. This needs to hit, all 50 states running.
When it sounds like that's exactly what Brian's doing.
Yeah, I love it.
Part of that California study is exactly that. It goes beyond building automation into automation and its effect on industries. Like you just mentioned, it's staggering. I mean, you're talking about some of you just mentioned two of the top 10. Well, I think truck driving is maybe in top teens, professions in the United States, where almost all the workers in the next 10 to 20 years will be displaced. And who's going to service that equipment, those automation things? It's going to be folks in our field or in the broader automation field. We absolutely have to get the word out about the opportunities in our field, which we've all benefited from, and then how people get the training and progress into employment. Absolutely.
Super. Well, this is good stuff.
We'll see if we can get Elon Musk on the show, Brian. We'll invite you back if we do.
I don't think you'll be having me if you have Elon, but thanks.
No, brother. Listen, man, Brian, can't tell you how much we appreciate you taking time to come on the show, and really and truly, you're doing fantastic work. Best way for people, our community, to contact you if they want to help and participate.
Yeah, email would be the best. Brian at acprofessionals.org is the best way to get me. Of course, if it's something critical, you've got my contact information, Eric. They can get that through you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, and thank you for having me today. It's a real honor. I just have to say it every time we're in a joint meeting. I got to thank you and your brother and Stromquist for your unwavering support from the time that we started this initiative over 10 years ago to today. it's most appreciated and most needed for our industry.
You're very, very welcome. And listen, we're here for you, whatever you need. Keep up the great work. I tell you what, you're making a huge difference, and will continue to in our industry. So we really appreciate you. That's Brian Lovell. Brian, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
So Kenny, I'm telling you what, Brian Lovell rocked and rolled, man. It was great stuff. And before we sign off, any comments?
No, it's just, again, another great, exciting week in the industry. We'll be talking more and more to the CEOs, CTOs, CIOs, COOs, anybody that really is engaged in the community that we're growing, and there's a lot of important things. There's tremendous solutions out there. There's tremendous products that are coming at us, and it's great to be able to work with the people that are actually developing or overseeing the programs, the product managers.
This guy's a game changer, man. I tell you
Yeah.
what, Brian Lovell, I mean, we talk about the PID award, passion, integrity, dedication. I think he's got to be on the ballot for that this year. And he's been around our industry for a long time. And you talk about a guy, a trim tab, if you will, somebody that could just turn the whole industry in a positive direction. Again, thank you, Brian Lovell, for what you do. And thank you for coming on the show.
Yep.
And with that, it's another week on Control Talk Now, your smart buildings video cast and podcast. A special thanks to our guest. I already thanked Brian Lovell. Also thank Tina Elliott from EasyIO. Thank the man, the myth, the legend, the one, the only, the smartest guy in the room, Kenny Smyers.
All right.
So with that, remember, be bold, stay in control, and be relevant.
Indeed, Eric. All right, man.